Yesterday's IG report provided even more information about what actually happened and confirmation of a fact that's been pretty obvious for a while. Former Obama CIA chief John Brennan is a liar. Not only that, he lied to Congress. In the spring of 2017, Brennan told the House Intel Committee that the Steele dossier played no role in the creation of an intelligence community assessment on Russian interference that was presented to both President Obama and President-elect Trump. Now, Brennan was not vague about this. He said unequivocally on camera the dossier was totally irrelevant. That was a complete lie. The IG report proves it. A lie. The Steele dossier, in fact, was a major element of the intelligence assessment, and Brennan in particular found it very important. In other words, John Brennan, not a close call here, perjured himself on camera in front of the world. But here's the striking thing. John Brennan is not facing perjury charges. In fact, he's still tweeting self-righteously and making smug appearances on CNN, which I think, check my memory for a second, pays him as a contributor. Meanwhile, former Trump advisor Roger Stone is looking to spend the rest of his life behind bars. His crime? Lying about emails that were totally irrelevant to anything. Literally irrelevant. So what sets John Brennan, former CIA director, apart from Roger Stone, professional prankster? Really, it's obvious. One supports the establishment in Washington, and the other made fun of it. These people are sick. Tom Fitton is president of Judicial Watch, and he joins us tonight. Tom, thanks so much for coming on. I never root for anybody's imprisonment or indictment. I really don't. It's bad karma. But I just can't get past the fact that John Brennan, the head of the CIA, lied right on camera, committed perjury right on camera, and not only he's not being punished, CNN hired him. Like, how does that work?
Well, it's actually a reconfirmation that he wasn't telling the truth about the assessment, because there's been other information even prior to the IG report that the shady dossier was used in the intelligence assessment, which obviously goes to the fact that the intelligence assessment put out there by all the intelligence agencies isn't worth the paper it's written on, because it's based on fraudulent information.
But shouldn't the last people who lie to us be the people in charge of our most sacred and closely guarded information at the intel agencies? Like, they can't lie like that.
Comey was referred for criminal prosecution for his taking of the FBI files of Donald Trump, lying to investigators, no prosecution. McCabe referred to for prosecution. In April 2018, DOJ still did the ring on it. Been several referrals to some of these deep state folks like Simpson and others for perjury potentially. You've got Brennan. DOJ hasn't done anything yet, and I'm just concerned that we're just going to have another report from Mr. Durham in the end, as opposed to prosecutions. Or even, let's at least do a criminal investigation. Let's have a real investigation with grand juries and people going under.
How can you commit perjury on TV? It makes everyone cynical. Tom Fitton, who remains uncynical despite 20 years here. Thank you.
You're welcome.
30, thank you.
Unless you have bipartisan consensus, impeachment is a divisive issue in the country. Many people would think it's being done for political reasons. Nancy Pelosi, May 2018. And here we are, in the most partisan presidential impeachment in American history. Matter of fact, when we opened the inquiry, no Republicans voted with the Democrats, and you even had Democrats voting with us in the only bipartisan vote to shut down this impeachment. And that brings us to your role, Mr. Goldman. Are you here as a partisan advocate for the Democrat position, or are you here as a nonpartisan investigator of the facts?
I'm here to present the report that we did on our investigation, which was totally and completely reliant on the actual evidence that we uncovered, the witness testimony, and the documents.
Are you a partisan?
I'm not a partisan.
Mr. Castro, how long have you worked for the House?
Since 2005.
And same question, Mr. Goldman.
For the House? Since earlier this year.
Mr. Castro, do you make political donations?
I don't remember any.
Mr. Goldman, same question. Do you make political donations?
I do, sir. I think it's very important.
Matter of fact, you've given tens of thousands of dollars to Democrats, right?
Sir, I think it's very important to support candidates for office. I think our...
Have you given over 100,000? I just want to know the number. I don't really care the basis. Have you given more than 100,000 to Democrats?
You don't care about it?
The basis. I just want the number. So it's tens of...
I don't know the number.
Do you know how much money Mr. Burke has given Democrats?
I don't know, and I don't...
Did it surprise you if it's more than 100,000?
Mr. Gates, I'm here to talk about this report.
So you gave tens of
I'm happy to talk
thousands,
to
and
you
Mr.
about
Burke
this
gave
report.
hundreds of, or more than 100,000. Do you think if you'd given more money, you might have been able to ask questions and answer them like Mr. Burke did? I guess it's something you're still pondering. Mr. Castro, have you ever tweeted anything at the president?
No.
Mr. Goldman, same question.
I have made a number of tweets in my private capacity before I came to this job when I was working in the media, yes.
As a matter of fact, this is one of those tweets, right? And you said, nothing in the dossier is proven false, but in fact the dossier said that there was a Russian consulate in Miami, when there isn't. The dossier said that Michael Cohen had a meeting in Prague, when he didn't. The dossier said that Michael Cohen's wife was Russian. She's in fact Ukrainian. And so as we sit here today, where you, I guess, got a tweet mentioning a P-tape, presenting yourself not as a partisan, hired by the Democrats to pursue the president, do you regret this tweet?
Sir, I would be happy to put this investigation up with any of the nonpartisan investigators.
I just want to know if you regret the tweet, Mr.
During
Goldman.
my 10 years as a federal
Do
prosecutor.
you regret it?
I hope you read the evidence, and I think you can judge.
You either
yourself
regret it or you
whether
don't
it's
regret it, Mr.
partisan or
Goldman. I
not.
guess you don't want to answer the question. You know what?
At 11:59 a.m. on January 20th, 2017, Donald Trump took the oath of office and became the President of the United States. By 12:05 that same day, Democrats were calling for his impeachment, and that's barely an exaggeration, if at all. Literally for years, the left has been howling that Trump must be removed immediately from office without the consent of voters. Every day. Finally, today, this day, fewer than 11 months before the next presidential election, they explained precisely how they plan to do that, as Democrats described their articles of impeachment today. Watch.
The first article is for abuse of power. It is an impeachable offense for the president to exercise the powers of his public office to obtain an improper personal benefit. That is exactly what President Trump did when he solicited and pressured Ukraine to interfere in our 2020 presidential election. This gives rise to the second article of impeachment for obstruction of Congress. We must be clear. No one, not even the president, is above the law.
Got that? No one is above the law. Explain the very same people who spent all day making excuses for illegitimate government spying on American citizens. But never mind. Literally, no one is above the law. Watch.
No one is above the law, not even the President of the United States.
Nobody is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law. No one is above the law, not even the President of the United States. No one's above the law.
No one is above the law.
That no person is above the law. Nobody should be above the law.
Nobody should be above the law, including the President of the United States.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. You don't need a law degree to understand it. Nobody is above the law. Nobody. Except for the more than 20 million illegal aliens who the left tell us have every right to be here, ignoring our laws. And shut up, racist, if you disagree. Also, the so-called homeless, shooting up and defecating and living full-time on our sidewalks. The law does not apply to them, or to subway jumpers in New York, or to Hunter Biden. But other than that, absolutely nobody is above the law, meaning Trump. And that's why they're impeaching him. But they're not celebrating that fact today. No, they're not. You might think they're excited, but they're not. Democrats want to be completely clear on this question. They're extremely troubled it has come to this. It is a sad day in Washington, a moment of poignant reflection, a moment redolent with sadness. Nancy Pelosi and Jerry Nadler and Adam Schiff and a number of other people who've never had a single authentic impulse in their entire lives would like you to know that they feel extremely, what's the word for this? Solemn about what's happening today. Seriously, solemn.
Good morning, everyone. On this solemn day, I recall that the first order of business for members of Congress is the solemn act to
take an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States.
That is why we must take this solemn step today.
The President's oath of office appears to mean very little to him, but the articles put forward today will give us a chance to show that we will defend the Constitution and that our oath means something to us.
We choose truth over facts.
And if that wasn't entertaining enough, and it was, but there was still more, because this is Washington, there's always more. Dig your hand a little deeper into this talking. Another president. Today's was Chuck Schumer, the professional Wall Street shill who lies for a living, going onto the Senate floor and accusing us, this network, and brace yourself here for a hot blast of irony, accusing Fox News of being dishonest. For real, watch.
The president conjures fictions, buys into baseless conspiracy theories told by known liars on Fox News or somewhere else. Here in the Senate, certain members of the grand old party are forming their own conspiracy caucus. Any crazy conspiracy, whether launched by Putin or some wild-eyed, crazy conspiracy theorist who manages, of course, all the time to get on Fox News and have his story or her story repeated.
It's just such a shame that Sigmund Freud has fallen out of favor. They're attacking him on the college campuses as a sexist. We need Sigmund Freud today, because without Freud, it's hard to recognize what's going on. But here it is, distilled to its essence. Write this down, put it on your fridge. It's the best guide to politics, ever. What the left accuses you of doing is precisely what they're doing themselves. They accuse you of fostering racism. Pushing conspiracy theories, lying to the American people. I'll start to finish the sentence. Of course, those are the three main things they're doing. And impeachment proves the point once more. The first article of impeachment accuses the president of, quote, abuse of power for, quote, soliciting the interference of a foreign government, Ukraine, in the 2020 United States presidential election, end quote. So just so you understand, House Democrats are arguing here that there was no meddling in American politics when a Ukrainian energy company hired the otherwise unemployable son of a sitting vice president at an exorbitant rate for no work at the very moment his father was policing, quote, anti-corruption efforts in their country. There's nothing political about that. And if you think otherwise, you believe in a conspiracy theory. A debunked conspiracy theory. A theory so debunked, in fact, that the president committed a literally impeachable offense simply by asking about it. That's right. And you know what else wasn't at all an abuse of power, but really the opposite of an abuse of power? When the last president, President Obama, killed a U.S. citizen without a trial using drone strikes. Not an abuse of power. Are you kidding? That's another debunked conspiracy theory. Or when he had the FBI investigate a rival presidential campaign based on an obviously fraudulent dossier of opposition research written by a foreigner using intel from the Russian government. That was not an abuse of power. What? You're crazy. What, do you work for Fox News or something? You freak. And while we're on the topic, by the way, the last several presidents, Bush, Obama, and yes, being honest now, Trump, have all overseen the growth of a brand new surveillance state, one aimed at you and me, American citizens. That was not an abuse of power. All those people have launched new wars abroad without bothering to ask Congress in violation of the Constitution of the United States, which requires them to do so explicitly. Not an abuse of power. With every passing year, the presidency becomes a lot more like a monarchy. Not an abuse of power. In fact, no big deal. But ask about Hunter Biden's sleazy deal with the Ukrainians. That's it, pal. We're moving you from office.
These people are sick.
Now, the second article of impeachment, by the way, accuses the president of obstruction of Congress. The crime here, supposedly, is declining to comply with congressional subpoenas. Subpoenas, by the way, like the ones of the phone companies that got people's phone records last week. You saw those. But subpoenas related to the impeachment process. Now, if you don't live in Washington, you may not know that neither party actually takes this seriously. Both parties know it's not a reason to impeach. President Clinton resisted subpoenas consistently, constantly during his impeachment saga 21 years ago. Nobody remembers that. Nobody would care if they did remember it, so we'll spare you any long explanation of it. But it happened. Come on, None of this is about actual high crimes and misdemeanors. They're not even trying to make that case. Why is this happening? You know why. Two reasons. First, Democrats, at least their troops on Twitter, still haven't accepted the defeat of 2016. They think impeachment would nullify that shocking loss like it never happened and allow them to ignore every lesson that came with that election. The lessons that both our parties needed to learn but didn't and have no interest in learning. They can continue to ignore those because Trump was impeached. He was an anomaly. Some weird orange guy showed up for a few years, but we kicked him out. We don't need to think about why voters would have supported him in the first place. But the other reason is looking to the future. Some Democrats, and they're not all dumb, that's for sure, some of them sincerely believe that impeachment will help their case in the 2020 elections. It'll unify their base, it'll demoralize the opposition, the Republicans, it'll humiliate the president, it'll improve their chances of winning the presidential election. Are they right about that? We don't really know. But we do know that as of tonight, polling suggests maybe it's not that simple. So, for example, every 3 months, Firehouse Strategies here in Washington has been polling voters in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. Those are, of course, the 3 critical swing states that made Trump president in 2016. In all the previous polls this year conducted by Firehouse, the president trailed Joe Biden in every one of those states. But in Firehouse's most recent poll, Trump is leading Biden and every other Democrat in all 3 states. Now, the economy is obviously roaring along, according to some measurements anyway. That's clearly helping the president. But it does seem like at the very moment Trump is being impeached, his numbers should be going down. And they're not. They're going up. So it's possible that instead of securing victory in 2020, these impeachment efforts could be leading the Democrats into a catastrophe. And why wouldn't that be the case? Because when you strip away all the analysis, here's the bottom line. Polls show consistently that for most voters, the ones who aren't on Twitter full-time, impeaching the president is not even close to the top of their list of priorities. They care about the things you'd expect them to care about, the things that you care about, no matter what party you're registered with. Healthcare, wages, student loan debt, which really is wrecking the country, crime, which is real and rising, the border, which is open, it's not even a border anymore, and just about every other issue that's not impeachment. And that shouldn't surprise you because those issues actually affect people. Even more, brace yourselves now, even more than internal Ukrainian politics. So every day the Democrats continue to focus all of their energy and all of our attention here in the media on impeachment, they're also sending a signal to voters that's pretty clear. And it's, we don't care what you think. And that's not a winning message over time. For more and deeper,
These people are sick.
Well, as the IG report yesterday confirmed beyond doubt, what we said on this show was true. At the heart of the Russia hoax was the Steele dossier. And the Steele dossier was from day one completely absurd. The only news outlet that ran it, remember, was BuzzFeed, a cat blog. It never should have seen the light of day, but once it did, half the country believed it, and so the hoax went on for 3 long years. That's the truth, by the way. That's not partisan spin. That's what actually happened. Today, the Attorney General of the United States, Bill Barr, blamed the press for abdicating its duty to the country in order to hype a fake story. Watch this.
I think our nation was turned on its head for 3 years. I think based on a completely bogus narrative that was largely fanned and hyped by an irresponsible press.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. And by the way, they're going to tell you it's not true, and Bill Barr, he's in the pocket of the president, he's just a puppet, he's a marionette. Okay, whatever. We have the tape. This is just a tiny piece of the CNN archives. Just a taste, but it'll remind you.
I've got to come over and see the fake news. Let's go.
Potentially big new questions in the Russia investigation and the corresponding lack of answers from the White House.
And any kind of collusion with the Russians.
And then there's the Russian investigation.
We know the Russians were involved in interfering with the election.
How do you explain the Manafort allegations as anything but collusion?
And it's on the question of collusion, possible collusion with Russia.
Fact. It's Russia.
These people are sick.
And now, as promised, highlights from the president's rally in Pennsylvania tonight.
The radical left Democrats and the failed Washington establishment are trying to erase your votes
nullify the election and overthrow our democracy. Not going to happen. Don't worry about it. I wouldn't lose too much sleep. But the impeachment hoax is about overturning your great 2016 vote, or in the alternative, trying to win the 2020 election. That's not going to happen. You saw their so-called articles of impeachment today? People are saying they're not even a crime. What happened? All of these horrible things, remember? Bribery and this and that. Where are they? They send these two things, they're not even a crime. This is the lightest, weakest impeachment. You know, our country's had actually many impeachments. You call judges and lots of many impeachments. But it was on today, everybody said, this is impeachment light. Far-left politicians support deadly sanctuary cities, demonstrating their sneering contempt, scorn and disdain for everyday Americans. These jurisdictions deliberately release dangerous, violent criminal aliens out of their jails and directly onto your streets, where they are free to offend, where they are free to kill, where they are free to rape, where they are free to beat up people, except for ICE, because ICE is much tougher than them. They don't beat up ICE. They don't beat up ICE. You're lucky we have ICE. They want to put ICE out of business. That's not happening. Here are the facts that Shifty Schiff. Is that guy the worst? He comes up to a microphone. No, he comes up to a microphone like 2.5 years ago. I have absolute proof that the President of the United States conspired with Russia. Russia? What the hell do I have to do with Russia? By the way, Russia wishes that Hillary Clinton won. They wish. We are now #1 in the world in energy. Russia's #3. We're beating now Russia and Saudi Arabia. You'd have windmills all over the place if you had crooked Hillary. They'd be knocking out those birds left and right. Those windmills, wah, wah, wah. Darling, I want to watch television tonight and there's no damn wind. What do? I want to watch the election results. Darling, there's no wind. The damn wind just isn't blowing like it used to because of global warming, I think. I think it's global warming.
President of Pennsylvania tonight. We're back tomorrow at 8. First, as we have been telling you for over 2.5 years, our top story tonight, the single biggest abuse of power scandal, corruption scandal in American political history. Our country's most powerful tools of intelligence were weaponized against a private citizen and a presidential campaign, transition team, and president. This all in 2016 and 17. And we were right. President Trump was right. The Attorney General Barr was right. Spying occurred. We told you. The mob didn't believe it, but it's all true. Take a look.
Do you still stand by your statement that the campaign was spied upon?
Well, it's clearly spied upon. I mean, that's what electronic surveillance is. I think wiring people up to go in and talk to people and make recordings of their conversations is spying. I think going through people's emails, which they did as a result of the FISA warrant, they went through everything, you know, from Page's life.
But he wasn't in the campaign at the point where he began the surveillance.
Yes, but his emails go back.
So while the mob and the media, they chased their own tail, breathlessly obsessing about one hoax and conspiracy theory after another, we on this program, we never relented. We unpeeled every layer of the onion. We covered this very real abuse of power, this very real corruption scandal, perhaps the biggest in history. A scandal that now the Attorney General of the United States just called intolerable. He's right. These are powerful comments. Pay close attention. These comments are not made in a vacuum. This is the Attorney General of the United States. He knows more than all of us on this. Take a look.
I think our nation was turned on its head for 3 years. I think based on a completely bogus narrative that was largely fanned and hyped by an irresponsible press. And I think that there were gross abuses of FISA and inexplicable behavior that is intolerable in the FBI.
Pete,
For 2.5 years, our ensemble cast, we got the crap beat out of us every day. We were beaten up. We were made fun of. It's all fine. I don't really care what anybody says anymore. But we, the people, we were right every step of the way. And the Inspector General's FISA abuse report, while limited in scope, confirmed and revealed major facts. One, and we've been telling you, Hillary Clinton's bought and paid for dirty Russian dossier. It was central. It was essential. It was almost the entire FISA application against Carter Page to backdoor into the Trump campaign, transition team, and even presidency. Without the dirty dossier, as we told you, there would not have been any FISA warrant. Second, the so-called intelligence in the dossier was nothing but garbage, lies, conspiracy theories, uncorroborated garbage based on one single source, never corroborated, never verified. In fact, as we told you, it was unverifiable. Third, the dossier's author, Christopher Steele, said his single source was an egomaniac that liked to boast. And fourth, Steele's single source told the FBI that his or her claims were never corroborated, were never conclusive, and were based on word of mouth or hearsay and a crude joke at the bar. Especially, remember the hookers, Moscow, Ritz-Carlton? Yeah, all of that information totally admitted from the FISA applications on purpose. That would mean premeditated fraud, perpetrated repeatedly on the FISA court. And according to the Inspector General, there were at least 17 significant failures, inaccuracies, and omissions. By the way, hey, Super Patriot Jim Comey, that's your FBI. That's you. You did that. You hurt the premier law enforcement agency of the world, not the rank and file. They are fantastic. You signed off on 3 of the 4 FISA applications. You never verified it because it was unverifiable. You knew full well that the information provided was never close to being vetted, true, or accurate, and that it was unverified. And under Comey's corrupt, malignant leadership, high-ranking FBI officials, again, not the brave men and women in the best law enforcement agency in the world, those top guys knowingly misled that FISA court repeatedly. They knowingly and purposely, we learned yesterday and today, omitted exculpatory evidence. They knowingly suppressed information about the reliability of Steele's principal source. They even altered things. And AG Barr is now saying Comey's FBI, well, they may have been acting in bad faith. That's an understatement. Take a look.
Here, to me, is the damning thing. They not only didn't tell the court that what they had been relying on was completely, rubbish. They actually started putting in things to bolster the Steele report by saying, well, we talked to the sources and they appeared to be truthful. But they don't inform the court that what they're truthful about is that the dossier is false. So that's hard to explain. And the core statement, in my opinion, by the IG is that these irregularities, these misstatements, these omissions were not satisfactorily explained. And I think that leaves open the possibility to infer bad faith.
What is Barr really saying here? That Comey is now a likely subject in the Durham Barr criminal probe? Well, I guess he didn't get the memo because Mr. Super Patriot, he's out there taking a victory lap, living in his conspiracy theory world and praising his own courageous leadership in the Washington Post. Mr. Comey, I've warned you about this before. You might want to hold off on popping the champagne, and guess what? You have the right to remain silent, and I suggest you might want to do that. We have a clear pattern now of willful misconduct. Comey, Brennan, Clapper, and all these other top officials in the Obama administration. And one of the most damning pieces of evidence is the fact that no one inside the Trump campaign, they never went to the Trump campaign, the candidate Trump, he's a patriot, and warned the Trump campaign about this counterintelligence investigation. Nope. Let's see, Brennan went to the Russians twice and Obama went once to tell them. Take a look.
What I find particularly inexplicable is that they talked to the Russians, but not to the presidential campaign. On August 4th, Brennan braced the head of Russian intelligence. He calls the head of Russian intelligence and says, we know what you're up to, you better stop it. He did it again later in August, and then President Obama talked to President Putin in September and said, we know what you're up to, you better cut it out. So they go and confront the Russians, who clearly are the bad guys, and they won't go and talk to the campaigns and say, what is this about?
Tell Vladimir a little more flexibility after the election. Instead of briefing the president, his campaign at the time, or members on his team about a possible threat, this is pretty unbelievable. Brennan, Obama, others, Comey used their meetings with the Trump campaign and transition team, secretly collecting evidence on Trump and warning the Russians. A setup, an insurance policy from the get-go. But let not your hearts be troubled, because Barr and Durham clearly are speaking out for a reason. They obviously, it's not hard to figure out, know things we do not know. And their now official criminal investigation is beyond serious, and I would believe justice is about to be served. It will take time. I'm not making any time predictions because, well, I thought that the Horowitz report would probably be out last May. Now, tonight, the president, he has every reason to be confident that those who have grossly abused their power, those that have been corrupt in 2016 and beyond, will, in fact, ultimately be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. Take a look.
It all started with the Russia witch hunt, right? Then the Inspector General's shocking report proved that the Obama FBI obtained secret warrants to spy on my campaign based on a phony foreign dossier of debunked smears paid for by crooked Hillary Clinton and the DNC. The FBI failed to disclose the nature of the political hit job to the FISA court. They hid it, they deceived it, and they lied.
Here with reaction, North Carolina Congressman Mark Meadows, Texas Congressman John Ratcliffe. It must be noted that but for these guys and Devin Nunes and Jim Jordan and Matt Gaetz, and I can't mention everybody, and I would even argue our ensemble team, we wouldn't be where we are today. And you guys took a lot of heat for all of this. How do you interpret, I find the remarks by both Congressman Meadows, the Attorney General, and John Durham, the extended remarks, particularly of the Attorney General, if I was one of the deep state operatives, I would find that particularly ominous, and I think I'd be lawyered up faster than you could say good morning.
Well, the Attorney General needs to be applauded tonight because what he's done is tried to put a frame behind the report that we just saw. Now, Inspector General Horowitz and his team found a lot of great facts. I believe they reached the wrong conclusion based on some of their limited tools. But more importantly than that, what we know is indeed Trump officials were spied upon, secretly recorded. But also what we know is that President Trump, then candidate Trump, was treated very differently. They went in, did a defensive briefing with him. What did they do? They sent a special agent in to spy on him while they're supposed to be saying you need to be protected from foreign interference. And I mean, I'm sure they said, listen, be careful. You never know who's spying on you. The only problem was Donald Trump didn't realize it was his own FBI.
These people are sick.
You know, Congressman Ratcliffe, here's what's interesting. So Jim Comey goes in January of 2017 to Trump Tower. He tells the then president-elect that dossier's out there. It's salacious and unverified. Yet in October, top of a FISA warrant, correct me if I'm wrong, John Ratcliffe, does it not say the word verified on it? And do we not know today that it's unverifiable? So did he lie to the president-elect Trump, or did he lie both before and after the Trump Tower meeting and certify it was verified? Did he lied once? He lied somewhere in there.
It does say verified at the top, Sean, and you know it was almost exactly a year ago today that Mark Meadows and Jim Jordan, Trey Gowdy, and myself deposed Jim Comey. It was December of 2018, and after that deposition, he came out, stood in front of a spray of reporters and said, they asked me a bunch of questions about FISA. FISA abuse is a bunch of nonsense. Well, if you read the Inspector General's report, very clearly, as the Attorney General just laid out, it wasn't just FISA abuse. It was systemic, repeated abuse, gross abuse, misrepresentations, false statements, refusing to provide exculpatory evidence to the FISA court. And that was under Jim Comey's watch, and he knew very clearly.
He signed it, Congressman. He signed it 3 times. He certified it was verified. If I, Sean Hannity, what would happen to Sean Hannity test? I think if I lied before a FISA court, premeditated lies with an unverifiable document, I don't know. Maybe, I think, probably, likely, I'd probably be charged with put in jail.
You'd be in jail.
Even Mark Meadows couldn't get me off as great as he is.
That's true, Sean. You would actually not only have run into a problem with signing off on that, but, you know, Jim Comey is out there doing a victory dance. The only reason he's doing a victory dance is because he's not in jail. He's maybe celebrating the fact that the IG community now found him inept, but they didn't find him criminal yet. But as we start to look at this, they're bragging about all kinds of things, and John Ratcliffe is exactly right, bragging about all kinds of things that are in this report that shows another thing. Adam Schiff's memo, not only was he wrong not once, not twice, but 3 times, he deserves 4 Pinocchios for lying to the American people on what was there.
Stay tuned. My next segment, I have a history lesson on the congenital liar, just for him. All right, last exit question. Do you believe that when you use unverifiable material, they knew it was unverified, they were warned it was unverified, do you see charges coming down the road, Congressman Ratcliffe and Congressman Meadows?
Well, I do see charges. I mean, in this FISA abuse summary from the Inspector General.
Lying to judges. Isn't it wrong to lie to judges?
Well,
I wouldn't lie to Judge Judy.
Very clearly, what's laid out is these aren't just errors and omissions. These aren't typos that are in there. You had someone working for Peter Strzok, a lawyer working for Peter Strzok, who, when Donald Trump got elected, sent a text message that said "Viva la Resistance." That very same person took an email that identified Carter Page as an operational asset for one of our agencies and changed it to say he was not, so that it could be submitted to the court to continue a renewal of the FISA. That was illegal. And so I would expect just on that basis alone that you'll see criminal referrals and prosecutions come from this, Sean.
Yeah, so Sean, one of the big things, the 2 statements, one from Attorney General Barr, the other from John Durham, is very telling on what they've seen. But what we also know is that after the president was inaugurated, after he was actually sworn into office, they knew that he was innocent. They continued an investigation. Someone needs to go to jail for that.
All right, and I'll forgive you, Congressman Meadows in particular, you and Jordan, that wouldn't share the information you knew, and you would only answer one question. Am I over the target? That's it.
Well, you're still over the target. You're still over the target.
Thank you, sir. First it was Russia collusion, then it was obstruction, then it was the quid and the pro and the quo, but it was really only Joe. Then it was bribery, then it was extortion, but now lacking any evidence of wrongdoing. 0. Democrats, they're walking back all their previous accusations, and in the light of day, they just decided, never mind, and they've only settled on 2 weak, ridiculous, absurd charges for their ridiculous Ukrainian impeachment coup attempt and articles of impeachment. First, they're accusing the president of abuse of power. Now, don't ask them to define this fake charge because they cannot. Second, they're now actually trying to impeach the president for obstruction of justice, obstruction of Congress. Now, they actually want to undo an election because the president exerted executive privilege, something Obama did, Bush did, Clinton did, nearly every other president in history did, and something they've all utilized. So let me tonight give a Hannity history lesson and educate some of these dumb lawmakers in the Democratic Party, because we have a constitutional system. We have 3 branches of government. Let's see, the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. Democrats want to dispute the executive branch's claim of executive privilege. Well, if there is a dispute between the executive and legislative branch, that's where the 3rd branch of government comes in. They resolve those disputes. But the 3 stooges of this impeachment charade and impeachment coup attempt are too much of in a rush to let the court case play out. Here now, with much more, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. I will tell you, I think I pounded on Republicans for a good 7 or 8 years straight for being weak, unorganized, feckless, spineless, visionless. This is the first amount of serious, significant unity, passion, and strength I have seen in a revitalized, as Reagan once said, Republican Party that I've seen in a decade. What's the difference? You're the fearless leader.
Well, the difference is we're sitting here fighting for our Constitution. I mean, what you just said, I felt like I was listening to Schoolhouse Rock one more time. When we watch what these Democrats are doing with these 2 articles that could go to anybody that they have no proof on, it really sums up exactly what these Democrats, they know what they dislike this president. They loathe him so much because they know they're going to lose to him.
These people are saying Democrats, they get rid of the quid and the pro and the quo and the bribery and the extortion. They just drop that in plain sight. Okay, they're going to settle on these 2 non-existent things that they settled on, and then they immediately race out to praise the president for his trade deal, because they haven't lifted a finger to help the American people get jobs, the economy, or peace or prosperity in any way. So I'm guessing the Democrats have a lot of problems within their ranks over the political suicide with Schiff and Nutty Nadler and Crazy Pelosi are now taking them.
It shows how unpopular impeachment is. Within 1 hour of doing an impeachment press conference, they do a press conference about USMCA. They held that up for 1 year, but that just shows how unpopular it is because they got to bring USMCA up. Now, we've got to give the president a great deal amount of credit here. This is really the art of the deal. If your viewers go back and remember, it's very difficult to get an agreement between these 2 countries. What did the president do? He shifted, got a negotiation with the president of Mexico right before he leaves office, put Canada in a bind that they had to come to an agreement, and now he just got the Speaker of the House, who just loves to impeach him, to agree to this.
Do you think the Democrats have the votes to go over the cliff with the congenital liar?
You know, it's very interesting tonight. There was a group of what I wouldn't call moderate Democrats, I'd call the old Democrats, because the new ones are all socialist Democrats. They are talking about, can we move to censure? Because they have no proof.
How many
of them? The only thing the Speaker ever had was a timeline. She had a timeline when she wanted to impeach him. She just never had the facts or the proof on her side.
How many Democrats you think are there?
Well, and the last one, the only bipartisan vote was not to go forward, and the only vote we're going to have on impeachment, bipartisan, will be a no.
Okay. Yesterday's explosive IG report was also a powerful rebuke of the compromised, corrupt, coward, congenital liar, that guy right there, Adam Schiff. Now, the Schiff show and Schiff, well, they couldn't have gotten this more wrong, as usual. Congressman Devin Nunes, the Freedom Caucus, could not have been more right. Let's compare Schiff's lie-filled 2018 memo compared to what the IG, Michael Horowitz, uncovered, which confirmed and vindicated everything. Oh, Devin Nunes, the Freedom Caucus, and we have been telling you on this show. For example, Schiff wrote, quote, FBI, DOJ did not abuse the FISA process, omit material information, or subvert this vital tool to spy on the Trump campaign. Horowitz found the exact opposite. We've identified at least 17 significant errors or omissions in the Carter Page FISA applications and many additional errors in the Woods procedures. Liar. And it gets even more embarrassing for the congenital liar Schiff. He actually wrote that the DOJ made, quote, only narrow use of information from Steele's sources about Page's specific activities in 2016 and, quote, didn't rely on any salacious allegations. Again, the exact opposite is true. From Horowitz's report, and I quote, we concluded the Crossfire Hurricane team's receipt of Steele's election reporting on September 19, 2016 played a central and essential role in the decision by the FBI to support the request for FISA surveillance targeting Carter Page, as well as the department's ultimate decision to seek the FISA order. Schiff also wrote, quote, the court approved surveillance of Page, allowed FBI to collect valuable intelligence, but as Horowitz lays out on page 476, Mr. Congenital Liar, the FBI was not able to gather any valuable intelligence, was not able to corroborate anything in the dirty, unverifiable, debunked, Clinton bought and paid Russian Steele dossier that they used and needed. It was essential to get the warrant. Let's read it. The Crossfire Hurricane team had not corroborated any of the specific substantive allegations against Carter Page contained in the election reporting and relied on in the FISA applications or any other evidence implicating Page. Schiff also falsely wrote, the congenital liar wrote, quote, the applications also reviewed Steele's multi-year history of credible reporting, including in criminal proceedings. Again, that was a lie by the congenital liar because the IG found that the FBI omitted that his past contributions to the FBI's criminal program, quote, had only been, quote, minimally corroborated. These people are sick. Verified FISA warrant right at the top. But again, this was all withheld from the FISA court, and it's hard to even put into words just how wrong and how regularly the compromised, corrupt, congenital liar Schiff lies. But of course, why would he ever let facts or reality get in the way of his next witch hunt? Because he's now justifying impeachment by suggesting that the president is going to cheat in 2020. I guess he has the congenital liar crystal ball. I'll say he's a liar. I say he cheated even before it happens. Take a look.
The argument, why don't you just wait, amounts to this. Why don't you just let him cheat in one more election? Why not let him cheat just one more time? Why not let him have foreign help just one more time? That is what that argument amounts to.
Mr. Castro, has any committee heard from the whistleblower, either in closed-door hearings or in open hearings? No. Did Chairman Schiff state that he would call the whistleblower to testify? He did. Has that happened? It has not. Is it going to occur? I hope so. Have other countries' aid also been held up? Yes. Mr. Goldman, on October 2nd, the New York Times reported that the whistleblower, quote, approached a House Intelligence Committee aide with his concerns about Mr. Trump. Is that accurate?
Sorry, say that again?
On October 2nd, the New York Times reported that the whistleblower approached a House Intelligence Committee aide with his concern about Mr. Trump. Is that accurate?
I think the whistleblower's concerns about President Trump are from the threats that
no, that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking, did the whistleblower approach a House Intelligence Committee? Let me ask it a different way. Have you had any communications with the whistleblower?
As I said earlier in response to questions from your colleagues, I'm not going to get into any...
So you're refusing to answer whether you've communicated with the whistleblower?
The whistleblower is not relevant to this report.
He's the whole basis of the beginning of this investigation. He's absolutely relevant to this committee, to the American people.
The whistleblower's complaints, for the reasons that Mr. Castor said, are not included. His allegations are not included in our report because the evidence has been outstripped and surpassed by the 17 witnesses that we have had come in to testify directly about the conduct that the whistleblower blew.
So as you sit here today, do you know the identity of the whistleblower?
Sir, I'm not going to talk to you about the identity of the whistleblower.
You're also refusing to answer whether you've had communications. That's my time, not yours. You're refusing to answer whether you had communications with the whistleblower. Has any other staff in the Intel Committee had communications with the whistleblower?
Sir, in the Intelligence
You're refusing to answer that question. And unfortunately, the American people want to know those answers, and unfortunately, my time
Congress has a right to...
Time to be, Chairman.